I'm Dawn Montefusco, and this is Write from Your Heart, how to unleash your creativity, share your message, and leave a lasting legacy. And today, I'm so excited, we have Michele P.W, which stands for Pariza, how do you say your last name?
Pariza Wasek, you almost had it. You had half of it.
I didn't go for it. I'm going to do it again. Michele P, I think it's cool that you have PW actually.
I like PW too.
Pariza Wasek is the best-selling author of the Love-Based Business series of books that share how to sell more with love and build a solid, profitable business on a foundation of love. In addition, she owns a copywriting and marketing company that has sold nearly $50 million worth of products and services for her clients over the past 8 years. In her spare time, she also writes and publishes psychological thrillers, mystery, and suspense novels. Visit her website to learn more at lovebasedcopy.com, and I'll have all that information on this page. Hi, Michele.
Hello, hello.
Well, let's just start with you telling us about what you're doing these days, any new projects or books?
Yeah, so lots of new books. So I'm actually launching, I'm in the middle of launching my a new psychological thriller series. So the first book, It Began with a Lie, is out. It's a Secrets of Redemption series. That's already, that was out September 10th. And then the new book is going to be out, the second book in the series, This Happened to Jessica, will be out November 27th. Wow. And then I got to get busy cracking on the third book. So, because I already have people asking about it. So, well, and I guess really, so that's like the manifestation, you know, that's an actual project that I've got coming out. But really what I'm really sinking into, and I think would be interesting to talk about, is this idea of building two brands, which is something that are two businesses. This is two distinct businesses. It's the copywriting business, which includes the copywriting books. I have a love-based copy school. And so I've got sort of the nonfiction that, and then also I might be delving into nonfiction books as well. And then I have the fiction brand, which is not about writing fiction. I really don't think I'm going to do that, but about, of course, selling the finished product, the actual novels. So I never thought I would be sitting here saying that I'm actively building two brands. I always kind of thought people who wanted to be a multiple passionate entrepreneur were just asking for a lot of heartache and issues, because it's a lot of work to do. And here I am. So yeah, just goes to say, be careful what you put out there or decide what you're not going to do, because the universe may have a different idea.
Do you think that, so tell us more about your writing journey. I love, you talk about it, and it's so sweet, and some of your website, and as well as some interviews. You knew when you were 3 that you wanted to write. You taught yourself how to read and write or something?
Yes, when I was 3 years old, I taught myself how to read. I read this, it was this book, New Hat, Old Hat. And Sesame Street probably helped too, but I remember sitting there in front of that book because I had it memorized, and I was just, you know, I was so determined, and that's what I remember the most, because I wanted to create stories. And what I was doing was, because I didn't have the words, I was actually drawing, I was doing little picture stories with these, what I called happy face spiders, which actually looked more like moons, or suns, I mean, because they were round, and then they had the legs all the way around. And then they would have smiley faces, or if it was a sad story, then they would have sad faces. So, but mostly I liked happy stories, so most of the time they were happy face spiders. But I remember being so frustrated, even at 3, because I had to, like, I drew the pictures, and then I would go tell my parents the story, but I knew that I wasn't capturing them complete, because, you know, because I was missing things. Like I had to have the story memorized, and I found that so frustrating. And I thought, God, if I could only have the words, then I could that's so much more precise in the pictures. So I was just bound and determined to actually learn that.
So when you went into your writer's life, you know, like, did you go into it with nonfiction and then veer to fiction? Was it always both? Like, how did that work out for you?
So so that's a great question. So basically, I wanted to write stories. So I was really, so when I was young, you know, that childhood, it was all very story oriented, and all through high school. But an interesting thing happened in high school, because, you know, I studied the whole idea of being a novel, and I knew you had to, like, write the novels before anybody would pay you. It's not like a job. So I knew I had to find a way to make money to support myself. So then, and I still wanted to write, though. Like, I didn't. And so I was casting around, and I thought, well, people said to me, maybe you could be a journalist. Well, I didn't want to be a journalist.
Right.
So, and then, but nobody knows what writers. They know about, like, nonfiction writers and fiction writers and journalists. And now I think with bloggers, it's
Yeah.
opened things up a little bit. But back then, because I'm old, none of that was out. So when I was in college, I finally I learned this whole kind of wacky world of direct response copywriting. And the interesting thing was I found out I was actually pretty good at it, because there is a similarity, and it's not that I'm making things up, that's what people used to say, but there is a similarity between writing fiction and doing direct response copy.
Mm-hmm.
And direct response copy, by the way, that's the copywriting that when you're on a page and you're scrolling down to forever going, trying to learn more about a product, saying, God, I just want to know what the price is. Why is it so long? Or those emails that you're scrolling down looking for and you're asking to click on a link, or you're going to a page and you get a free gift, but you have to give your name and email address. All that is direct response. And the idea behind it is that the marketing materials, you're directly responding to the marketing materials. But in order for you to take action, or anyone, if you want to persuade anybody to take action, you have to tap into their emotions. And you could tap into love-based or fear-based. That's where the love-based copywriting piece came out. But where the intersection is that it all has to do with human behavior, and and really understanding sort of emotions and how people tick. And for fiction, you're creating like a fictional dream, and obviously your characters have to act in a way that makes sense, or your readers are going to say, this doesn't make any sense, and not read your book anymore. So it's like, it's two different sides of the same coin. For the direct response copy, you're creating a buying environment for your ideal prospects, so they can learn about the product and service. And I very much teach a way that, you're not supposed to, I don't believe in manipulating or pushing people to buy against their will. It's more along the lines of, you're creating a buying environment because we get in our way, and we truly are in pain, and we truly do need certain products and services, and we want them. So this is just a way that, but we're going to stand in our own way. We've got resistance, we've got this, we got that. So part of the persuasion and the copy is for the people who are ready to step forward. You give them a container so they can. And then for fiction, obviously, the idea of it is that you're creating characters and you're creating the fictional dream, so people can step into it and experience it as well. And I've come to realize that the fiction actually, in all art, in fact, I have a blog post, you're talking about that really the point of all art is because it is all about tapping into our emotions. And so many people have shut down our emotions. We numb them, we run away from them. And so we're kind of really half living. And art actually creates this container so we can step into we can feel our emotions. That's like why we want to be scared. That's why we like scary movies or sad movies, because it's a safe container that's allowing us to feel those emotions without it getting caught up in our own life.
That's so exciting. When did you start? So you did the love-based copy first, and then you started writing?
So I was writing fiction. No, so I started regular copywriting when I was in college. And so I was kind of regular copywriting, and then about, God, this is getting older and older, the early 2000s. So almost 20 years ago, I'd been working on a novel, basically my first novel, on and off. And so the early 2000s is when I finally just finished that novel, plus got a second one done. So I had two finished novels, and those are the first two that I published a few years back.
Did you ever think like, oh, I shouldn't be writing fiction, I should just stick with this?
Yes, I thought that, because I struggled with the fiction, even in high school, because I didn't feel like it was enough. Like Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in Big Magic. I mean, I was really caught into that whole thing. Well, I can't just write stories, especially like scary stories, because, that's not changing the world. So, it's not a good message. So I really struggled with it. Because, I really thought like I had to go out and do something where really I just wanted to write a good story. And so I think that was another reason what drove the copy, even though copy, you're selling stuff with businesses, it still felt like, like helping entrepreneurs out, helping change the world. I mean, I could kind of wrap that changing the world and message easier on that side than I could for the fiction side. So, but yeah, and I didn't come up with this whole, by the way, this whole like art, is creating a container for our emotions. I mean, I didn't do that because I decided that I needed a reason to write fiction. It really came because I finally decided a few years back after my mother passed that this was it. I was going to do the fiction, and I didn't care. I didn't care about, the bigger messages or making a big impact. This is what my soul was calling me to do. So that's why I did it. But it was only after I started writing it and I started to think about it, I started to realize, what, there is really an essential piece of art here that we're missing. Mm-hmm. And so there really is something there. Even if you are just writing trashy romance books, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. Gay Hendricks in The Joy of Genius, he says there's two kinds of creativity. There's ordinary creativity, where you're doing something to supply it for someone else. Whatever it is, you're doing it for the other, right? Yes. Oh, that's what I think they want, whatever that is.
Yes.
But true creativity, he says, is when you're doing it for you and you want to share it.
Yes.
And it sounds like what I loved is your energy and your tone shifted when you said that you really started to write for you.
Yeah.
That there was, I almost could actually viscerally feel that it was nurturing. There was something nurturing about doing it for you that you didn't get from other writing.
It wasn't. That was exactly it. So I really pushed. So like I wrote those first two books in my early 2000s. At that time I was trying, there was no Amazon. There's barely an internet. And I wasn't going to go and self-publish and have, from a vanity press and have like a garage full of books and no way to sell it unless I like put it in my trunk. I mean, that's what they had to do back then, by the way. This whole stuff, you put it in your trunk and then you would drive places and then you go, hey, buy my book. Yeah, I wasn't.
I'm 49. I remember all of it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm 49 too. So yes.
You look amazing.
Oh, thank you. I told you. I'm 49.
Okay, I'm leaving this on here. We're 49. I thought you were like 32, 35 at the max. I'm thinking, why does she say she's old?
I'm 49. Yeah, I'm going to be 50 January 8th. Yes. Woo!
Yes. So yes, I do remember that.
Yes, the whole like putting the vanity press and the books and oh my God. So
that's awesome.
So I actually tried to get a publisher. I almost did, Bandom Dell. So I actually had an editor there who was very interested. I found an agent. So, and then the whole thing fell apart, the whole thing which happens. And so I started to write a third book. That's what they told me to do. And I actually wrote 100 pages in the third book, which is what my agent said, write 100 pages, send it to me, we'll send it to him. And then what did I do? I wrote the 100 pages and then I didn't do anything. I did nothing.
Yeah, totally.
Because at that, I was so discouraged by that point. I remember that I just put the whole thing aside and I thought, I'm just going to focus on the copywriting. And that's what I did. And it was really, and that's the thing, it was cutting off a piece of me. And I think that's one of the things that I didn't completely understand, even though I was in the process of doing it to myself, because I've spoken to other like sort of multi-passionate entrepreneurs. I mean, they've got a lot of names, but, and they say that they feel like, you're cutting an arm off to just focus on one business. And I didn't really understand it, but until I was, and what's so weird is that I was in the process of doing that because I was actually very unhappy just building the one and completely ignoring, because that's what it was. I was completely ignoring the fiction part of it. And that just wasn't healthy. So anyways, but then, I kind of went through this whole sort of entrepreneurial journey, and then in 2014, when my mother, it was after my mother first got sick with cancer, that's when the whole love-based copywriting kind of, I got that, downloaded that philosophy. I started to write nonfiction books. And then when my mother passed in 2015, it was interesting because at that point, Andrea Lee, she's a good friend of mine, and she's, an amazing coach, if anybody knows her. And she was talking, she said, Michelle, just get the book out, just get your fiction out. Because it was really, I had 2 completed books just sitting here gathering dust. And I finally, but it was the turning point when she actually did. Because like Andrea was pushing me, you know, a few months before. And then when she finally passed, I thought, all right, this is it. And I did. So I got The Stolen Twin out in that following November, and Mirror Image out 6 months later.
Wow.
And then I
How
also,
does that feel?
you know what, it felt, well, it was scary. So, I mean, I have a whole bunch of stories about that. Like one of the things that was, I mean, it was so scary about was, well, I told my entrepreneurial friends, because, you know, obviously I had a lot of entrepreneurial friends, and most people were like, oh my God, you wrote fiction. And they kind of had that same, and they did buy the book. And I had a lot of people saying things like, well, I knew her professionally. So you feel like, I remember this one guy did a review. He's really funny. He was on my newsletter list. So it was and he says, you know, well, you know somebody professional, you've been following for a while, so you buy the book, and you know, it's not bad. It's pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised. And then I got in the middle of this whole thing, I had paid for a review from Kirkus, and they just trashed it. I have a whole blog post about that on my mpwnovels.com.
Yeah.
I mean, they trashed the book. And I remember I burst into tears. My husband comes in. He's like, oh, it can't be that bad. I showed it to him, and he's like, oh, yeah, I guess it is that bad. And and the thing is that at that point, that's when I completely second guessed myself. And I thought, oh, only people who know me are going to like the book. If you don't know me, you're not going to like the book. So it was just really, but you know, and I was going to I wanted to unpublish the book. I wanted to go back and hide, but no, but I kept going. And so the thing is that, you know, that book I ended up getting it up to a bestseller on Amazon. Now I know you can do that pretty easily with nonfiction site. You can't with the fiction.
Not with fiction. I do know that.
Yeah.
I just studied that. Yeah. No, that's
yeah. And it was #1 in teen and young adults. I was ranked 20. I got it as high as 24 overall in book sales.
That was amazing.
I know. So, and it still does well. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, I get about one out of every 5 reviews is bad. So
you know, I think that's the plight of the writer. It's really interesting. You probably have had similar stuff. You know, I write nonfiction, I write poetry, and I'm a poet, you know, and I love that. But it's really funny. Some people say just for me to write like an engineer's website. Well, just write it. They want to pay you to write that. I'm like, the word writer, it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Artists and creatives don't get as many reviews in language the way that writers do. Like we come across tremendous judgment because it's words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, any inspiration for those out there who, you know, I get a lot of people who have written, they have half a book usually, or a book out there, or it's their, like you said, it's their soul's calling. They know, and I know that they won't be satisfied or fulfilled in life unless they write it. Similar to what you were saying about Elizabeth Gilbert, just write it.
That's right.
Any advice you would give to people, you know, adults, professionals who are, you know, in their 40s, who are like, oh, I just want to get it out there. Any advice to the people that are stuck still?
You know, I mean, I first of all, I can really feel you, because I was too, and I get it. I mean, it can be very challenging. I mean, you may have kids and a family and a career and just, you know, volunteer work and just a lot of things pulling at you. But, you know, I mean, the thing is that, it's like probably my biggest regret is that I couldn't get out of my own way and get my books published while my mother was still alive. And so I think that's the key. I mean, it was really her death because I actually finally started writing a fiction. Like I hadn't written any fiction for 8 years, and about 3 or 4 months before her death, I started to work on something. And it was funny because I had so much stuff, and that's the book that I ended up publishing. It Began with a Lie. And it was really funny because when I published that, or when I started writing it, I remember thinking, why am I writing this now? I don't have time. I've got this, I got that, you know. And again, it was all the craziness. And then I just kept hearing that words like, just start to write. And at that point I was a little more open, but, you know, because I'd gone through, my mother had been quite sick. She had almost died. And so I started working on it. But I still wasn't like, even Andrea pushing me, just like, because I said, well, I have to read The Stolen Twin before I get it. I got to read it one more time. I mean, I wasn't stuck in the, I got to edit it one more time, but I felt like I needed to at least review it.
Mhm.
And Andrea was like, you know, she said, you know what, you don't have to do that. You know, give it to me. I'll read it and just get it out. I mean, she was really, and I, you know, and I needed that. So, so, and it was, but I did end up reading it one more time. I did end up, you know, doing a final, you know, so I did all the right things, but it was after she died. It was after, when she finally, you know, it was like, life is too short. And I know it all sounds cliche. It all sounds cliche until it doesn't, until it
Yeah,
really strikes
exactly.
home to you.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
But if there is something, you know,
Mm.
if there is something out there, like what you said, like, you know, it's like, you know, we don't know how much time we have. And even if you just get up and work on it for 15 minutes a day, that's all, if you just devote 15 minutes a day to it,
Mhm.
you know, just do that. That might be enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It really is. It soothes the soul. It
Yeah.
just soothes the soul. And when we're soothing our souls, we make a big difference everywhere. We really do.
And you'll probably be amazed at how much better you feel. So,
Yeah.
because the thing is that that's the thing that I didn't really take into account, because I was like, oh, you know, I'm not going to have the time, I'm not going to have energy, wow, you know, all the crazy talk. But once you just, and that's the thing, and that's what finally got me going, was Samantha Bennett wrote a book, like Get It Done. I think that's the name of it.
Yeah, yeah, she's awesome. Totally.
Yeah, and that's what she was advocating, was just work on it 15 minutes a day. And she had all these stories. And when I first read it, I was like, oh, you can't write a novel in 15 minutes a day, you know. And but then, so the thing is that, but you know, I think you can, because that is how I started. That is how I got myself back started, was doing 15 minutes a day, and it does work, and you can get a book done. And the thing is that I guess the thing is just set us, even if you can only do 5 minutes, just do 5 minutes. Just find some time that you can consistently do every day. It does
Mhm.
have to be every day. And then, you know, is it over your lunchtime? Do you just get up 15 minutes earlier? It doesn't matter. And try to put aside, like stop thinking about, like, well, if I only do 15 minutes a day, it's going to take me 5 years to write the book. It's like, that's not the right question, because not doing anything, you know, you're never going to get it written. So so think of it more on the 15 minutes a day, and then and how much better you're going to feel about everything. You know, you're going to be a better parent, you're going to be a better employee, because you're going to find, your soul is finally going to have that. You will be a better person. So isn't it worth the 15 minutes to do that?
Yes. And just with 15 minutes, like you said, it somehow recalibrates the
Yeah.
mind, the heart, the soul, and you just find the time. It's almost like
Yes.
you magically stretch time, because now you know you're doing it. Now you know you love it. Now, you know, it's really interesting how that works. I can't thank you enough for all of this. This is just beautiful, and it's been such an honor to interview and get to know you better. So I just want to really thank you for this. You're doing big work just by being you. That's what I
Well,
love.
thank you.
Being you. You're helping Whoa, was that thunder?
That was thunder. I didn't think it was raining here. I know.
Oh, I thought it was. I was like, where did that come from? That's
Oh, it's coming from outside our house. I didn't
on
think.
the right path. You know.
I am.
On that note, you have a free gift as well to offer us.
I do, which is the love-based copy template. And so the thing is that even if you're not an entrepreneur right now, even if you are an artist, it doesn't matter where you are. If you want to be in the business of selling your art on any level, even if it's just, you know, a few books on Amazon or on the side, you do need to understand how to write the words, because that's really what it's about. So, and if you want to learn, if you want to, you know, tap into people, or tap into love-based emotions, kind of what I was saying, versus the more traditional sales and marketing that you may be familiar with, that taps more into fear, you may like the love-based copy template that I'm doing, and that's kind of based on my best-selling book, The Love-Based Copywriting Method. You don't have to buy the book to get the template. You know, the template's free. However, if you want to go deeper, I would suggest that you get the book. The book's only $2.99, and you can get, you know, for the Kindle version,
Yeah.
or the Nook version, or the iTunes version, or Apple Books, or whatever it is.
Your stuff, all your stuff is amazing. Definitely.
Thank you.
But this would be great. Yeah, thank you.
So I would just highly just say get that, because you are going to have to learn the rudimentary basics of how to sell yourself online, and really it's a wonderful thing, because if if you're creating art, likely you do, even if it takes you 5 years to get that book done, that's okay. You eventually you're going to want to get it out there, and so knowing the skill is going to really help you.
Oh, that sounds great. Everybody can use it. We're in the technology age. It is the 21st century, people.
Exactly.
We have the ability. I have this great thing. I'm like, being in the 21st century is awesome. Being over 40 in the 21st century is really awesome. And being a writer in their 40s in the 21st century is phenomenal, because we can get out of it. We're like, whoo, because I'll end on this note. I remember stapling things from the library copies, and just
Yes.
to read my chat book was like pulling teeth.
I know. I know. I remember, I had a first computer. My dad did buy a computer when I was in high school. It was like an Apple IIe, and my mother was so excited about it, because she would like have to, because she was my dad's typist, and that was the time we had to retype a whole page. Like if you change one word, you got to retype the whole page. And she's like, you don't have to type the whole page. You just change one word in this word processing.
That is awesome. So everybody out there, come on, celebrate. You've got it made. It's the 21st century. Keep writing. Michele, thank you. It's been great times.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful day.
Yes, you too.
Okay. Bye.